Hello everyone, welcome back to Wild Thistle Kitchen. Today I wanted to show you what I have been preserving for the Every Bit Counts challenge from Jessica at Three Rivers Homestead. It has a little bit of a different meaning for me, I think, this year, and I also just wanted to encourage anyone in my position with maybe some smaller harvests for whatever reason to still appreciate those harvests and preserve them if you want to and if you can, so that even in the middle of winter you can have those little bits of your summer garden preserved in the freezer or in jars. So this year we did not plant a large garden for a couple of reasons. And this garden I'm showing you right now is our potager, as we've been calling it, or our kitchen garden, a cottage garden. It can go by many different names, but it's right off of our kitchen, and it's just so beautiful. It's been bringing us so much happiness this summer. And here you can see my husband cutting down some of our comfrey, which has just grown like crazy this year. So we're actually going to use this as fertilizer, what he's cutting off. It is not going to go to waste, but it's been, it flopped right over into the pathways. So we're getting rid of that part. But yeah, just showing you a little glimpse of our 4 beds in our potager. We had some little tomato plants in here, but they were just very small, like dwarf tomatoes, and they've given us all they're going to, so we tore them out. But there are still flowers and our 2 little fig trees, which are doing so well, and lots of herbs. That's kind of what I focused on mostly. There's some beautiful thyme and purple basil, and my regular basil has just been, I've never had such big, beautiful basil plants as this year. And here are some of our little fig babies, as I call them. They're just amazing to me. I have never grown figs before. This is the first year, and to say I'm excited is an understatement. And I'm also going to preserve some of the fig leaves, but not in this video. I didn't want to mess with the leaves too much while the figs were growing. But yeah, if you didn't know, that spot right there is actually where one of the tomato plants was. But if you didn't know, you can preserve and cook with fig leaves, and apparently they have like a coconut type flavor, so I'm excited to try that. There's some parsley, and then this is pineapple sage. I never grew it until this year, and apparently it also has some pretty neat qualities, and I'm going to try to make a tincture out of it. So we'll see how that goes. And then just some zinnias, some marigolds. It's just so fun to have kind of a very casual garden this year, and not preserve too much, because I have a lot left over from last year, and I had a baby in late December, and I just didn't get seeds started, and that's okay. I didn't put too much pressure on myself, and we've still had quite an abundant garden space, both here in the potager and also in our larger vegetable garden, which I'll show you a little bit also at the end of this video. But yeah, here are those beautiful fig leaves. And then this is some very dried up cilantro that I let go to seed on purpose, because I'm going to save the seeds, the coriander seeds, and grind those up, and I'll show you that in a little bit. And there's some beautiful Thai basil next to it. We love Thai food, and also I love planting Thai basil and letting it go to flower like this, because the bees and butterflies love it, and it's beautiful, I think. And here is my spent hollyhock. It was just the most beautiful, tall, I mean, it's as tall as the house, well, as tall as the porch, and it's a beautiful dark eggplant purple color, and it was just covered in flowers earlier in the season, and the bees, butterflies, hummingbirds, they were just all over it. And all of these seed pods, I don't think I'm going to save all of them, because that would be a little crazy, but I will definitely be saving a lot of those to grow more next year. And our roses are just doing really well this year too. I need to train them up a little better. They're kind of getting crazy here, but I kind of like that. But yeah, look how pretty. They were earlier in the season, they were just covered, but they've been almost continuously blooming. And then here is that one of my huge basil plants. I'm getting some because one of the things I will be preserving with my, some might say, smaller harvest this year is I'm going to make some pesto for the freezer, and I'll show you that process. And then, like I said, I'm going to harvest these dried coriander seeds as well. I like to use coriander in curries, and also it's really good in taco seasoning, homemade taco seasoning, and chili. It just, any of those types of flavors, I think it goes really well with. So here I am making pesto, which I haven't done in a while actually. It reminds me so much of my grandma because she also grew basil, like these basil plants. Somehow hers were always just huge. She just had a magical green thumb with a lot of things, but especially basil. And one summer when I was staying with her, I remember helping her make just, it seemed like gallons of pesto for the freezer. And so this pesto making session is in her honor, the original Anita. So yeah, I am taking some parmesan and some romano, and the quickest and easiest way to get a lot of grated parmesan or any kind of hard cheese, in my opinion, is to just chop it into little cubes and throw it in the food processor. And since I'm already going to be using it for the pesto, it's an easy way to get it done and kind of maximize my use of the food processor, because you don't have to wash it out if you're just going to make pesto right after. So there, so easy. Now I'm adding some garlic to the food processor to make the pesto. I don't follow like a strict recipe for pesto. I kind of just have made it so many times over the years, but it's about 4 cups of basil, I use like 3 or 4 garlic cloves. This is 2/3 cup of pine nuts, but I've made it with probably every nut that exists. Literally, I think I've made it with pecans, walnuts, pistachios even, they're really good. Almonds. So I added a little citric acid because it will help the pesto stay green, and then some salt. And now I'm drizzling in some olive oil. You don't have to go too slow. I mean, you're not trying to make like a mayonnaise. You just dump it in and as you're blending. And then I do like to add the cheese at the very end and kind of barely mix it in. I don't like to get it like too ground up. And there it is, some nice pesto. I also do like adding lemon juice and sometimes even lemon zest, but I didn't have any lemons this day, so the citric acid will also give it a little bright flavor that the lemon juice would. And I'm just scooping it into a regular sized muffin tin and sticking it in the freezer. And then these tomatoes here I have been preserving. We've been eating a ton fresh, but even with my few tomato plants, it's just too much to keep up with fresh eating. So I just stuck them in the freezer, and maybe in the middle of winter I'll pull them out and either make a sauce or can some, but probably not can because I didn't grow a ton that's really worth canning, but I still love to preserve. So, you know, I'm getting my fix a little bit by putting those in the freezer and, you know, planning for winter tomatoes. And then here I just popped them out. It's pretty easy with a thin, sharp blade. You just run it around and they pop right out of there. the little pesto pucks, and I put them in just a resealable plastic bag. Of course, you don't have to use a plastic bag if you don't want to. You can use any container that's freezer safe. But this is easiest for me, and I am, like my father, a plastic bag reuser. I will wash them out and reuse them as many times as I can. Okay, moving on to onions. I had a very funny onion harvest this year. They grew really well, beautiful green tops, and they all started to look, like how they kind of flop over when they're ready. And they were just tiny. For some reason, they just didn't get very big, but they're beautiful onions, and I'm not complaining. So I just, I picked them all because they were definitely done, and let them cure out here. This is on one of our open covered porches. It has good airflow, so I just let them cure on this table and flipped them over a couple times. And I'm not going to try to braid them because it's frustrating and I'm not very good at it, but I just put them all in this pretty little basket, and we'll use these up pretty quickly. And that one on top is the biggest prize of the whole harvest, but just look how pretty. Even though they're small, they sure are beautiful. And then here, I didn't show picking this, but this is the dill that I had out in the potager, and I am going to save the dill seeds, kind of the tops. I don't worry if some of the little stems get in. And I'm going to make a little spice blend with it. So I was getting really creative this year for this challenge, but also just because I really love preserving things. I love saving my, the things that I have grown, and they really do just make me happy in the middle of winter when nothing really is growing around here. I can use this spice blend on some steaks or chicken and remember, my beautiful summer garden. I'm just snipping off the tops. I kind of started out with my fingers and I realized, there's a better way, and I just snipped off the little tops, and they just look so funny afterward, almost like little brooms. So here they all are, and I'm just using this little spice grinder. It was my dad's, and I've been using it for a few years now, and it does a great job with spices. And then just buzz them up in there. And you do have to kind of shake it around, especially with something that's a little more fluffy like this. And then I just added the rest on top of that same little batch. And it got nice and powdery. It smells so good. The seeds and the little stems, it's all dill. It all smells and tastes like dill. It's maybe a little stronger because it's dried. It doesn't have that bright, green dill flavor, but it definitely tastes like dill. So I'm adding some salt here right to the grinder. And you can see I'm not measuring. I'm just pouring it in. Some black pepper and some garlic. So it'll be a really tasty spice blend that, well, I didn't grow the garlic or the pepper, but obviously it's a homegrown spice blend as much as it could be. And those little things they just make you feel good, when you grow something and you preserve it and you get to use it all winter or all year, really. This will last us a while. And it just is proof that, even if you do have a smaller gardening year, you can still save really nice quality items and put them up on your shelves. So don't feel like just because you had a smaller gardening year or smaller harvest that it's any less worthy of preserving. And then here's that coriander. The seeds are coriander, and then of course when it was green and fresh it was cilantro. And we had it for a little while, but if you know cilantro, you know that it doesn't like high heat, high temperatures, and it bolts pretty fast. But I let it do that on purpose because, well, for one, pollinators love those little white flowers that it grows, and then also if you want the seeds, you have to let it go to seed, of course. So they're really easy to get off the stems when it's this dry. So I'm just taking my fingers and kind of rubbing them off. It's nice, kind of slow, satisfying work. You just kind of get into the zone and pick off as many as you can. I don't get too crazy about it. If there are a few left on, I leave them. And then I pick out some stems, of course, fall in there, and I went through and picked them. I found a little spider too, and I got him out of there so I didn't grind him up. That's how it goes with organic gardening. And then I dumped them onto a towel, and you can kind of roll your hand over it lightly, and it kind of rolls it away from any of the debris, the little stems. It's a good little trick, so you don't have to pick each one out. And then I just pour them right into the spice grinder. I didn't wash it. I just tapped out that old the dill spice blend, and then I'm just grinding this up right in that same one. I don't think it'll mess up the flavors too much. And then same thing, just grind it up to the consistency that you like. I don't mind if it's a little coarse, but yeah, there it is. Ground coriander, just from a tiny little potager garden. And then moving on to these beautiful red jalapenos. We've had a pretty good pepper year, but they're coming in really slowly, like one by one or sometimes two. So I was thinking, how can I preserve kind of a smaller amount of them? And these were so pretty and bright red that I wanted to do something that would, kind of show that off. And I was reading about fermented jalapenos in honey. I'd never heard of that before, but it's just 2 ingredients, peppers and honey. And it, some people, you can use it in recipes, of course, or to eat or drizzle over chicken wings or whatever you like. But also some people like it in the winter, almost. If you've heard of fire cider, this is like a much more simplified, not really version of that, but it's kind of the same idea, like a hot, cough syrup type thing. And those are my little jars of the spices. They just look so cute in their little jars, and I'll put those on our spice shelf. And then here are those. They're not, of course, not fermented yet, but you let it just sit. I can't remember how long. I'll have to look back at the recipe, but basically until it ferments, and you'll see little bubbles in there, and the honey will become quite thin. And then here are just more tomatoes. They keep coming in, and we eat them fresh and on salads and sandwiches, but then, just to keep up with them before they go bad, I've just been chopping them, the big ones, and putting them in the freezer, and then the smaller tomatoes I just put in whole. And then in the winter, I'll just pull them out and do something with them. Who knows? But it's nice knowing that they'll be in there ready for me. So here is the big garden that we just didn't do a lot in this summer. Well, I shouldn't say that, because we did do a lot, but we didn't really focus on planting a lot of storage crops. We just kind of had fun with it. And so I did that big row of sunflowers, kind of a late harvest, or not harvest, a late sowing, and I highly recommend it because they are already blooming, and it's going to be like a beautiful fall crop of sunflowers. There was a tiny funny little artichoke. That's his first year, so I think next year it'll be a little bit bigger. And then my tomatoes, I think this is 6 plants I planted this year, which last year I think I had, God, I don't even remember, maybe 50. I went a little crazy with tomatoes last year, and I still have plenty of tomato canned products that I canned last year. These zinnias and it's that holy basil or tulsi. I didn't plant these this year. This is the second year this bed has just popped up with them, and I love it. I just let it go. The pollinators love this bed. and I do too. So it's just beautiful and no work. And then this is where the onions were, my silly little onions, and all of these marigolds, they just grew. If you grow marigolds once, just know that you will always have marigolds, which doesn't bother me, but it might bother some people. If they really get in the way, I'll pull them out or transplant them, but otherwise I just let them grow where they are. And here's my tomatoes again. And that's beautiful. That row of sunflowers just makes me so happy. And I planted also some later season, I guess, potatoes, and they're doing really well. Some of them are already flowering since I recorded this. So we'll have some fall potatoes. And then here's my strawberry bed. And we had to put this over because the deer apparently love strawberry plants and they were munching them, so they got a cover. And some oregano and sage. Again, this is probably the fourth or fifth year. These just pop up. You can see some grass in there. I got to get in there and get it out, but this bed was no work and it's beautiful. And I'm going to dry a lot of these herbs I'm showing you. I will pull some off to dry. And then here I planted some cucumbers. I'm going to try to get a fall crop of cucumbers. We'll see how it goes. And these are our peppers and marigolds that I just let run wild in this bed. Maybe that's why the peppers aren't growing too big. But they're doing fine. We have a lot of green jalapenos still. But we really don't need to preserve anything this year because, if anything, maybe some pickled jalapenos because we are out of our homemade ones. But we have a lot of cowboy candy left. And then here's a ground cherry that ended up in the pepper bed somehow, and I just let it be. And back to the potager. We've had a lot of butterflies. This is a swallowtail, and she has been laying her little babies, and we've been seeing them, and I'm just so happy to see, the life in our little kitchen garden. It's beautiful. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it inspired you to participate in the Every Bit Counts challenge, or even just in what it stands for, because every bit really does count. If you plant it, or even if it self-sows, it's worth preserving. And don't stress out. Just do what you can each year, and remember that every season passes and it will come again, and you will have a chance to create a garden year after year, which is one of my favorite things about gardening. I know it's going to be back next year, and I have big plans, as usual. Make sure to check out the hashtag EveryBitCounts, and I will leave that down in the description box as well to see what everyone else has been preserving all the month of August. And thank you to Jessica of Three Rivers Homestead for always hosting such fun challenges and for just being such an inspiration in this community.